All right, if you didn't get the handouts, you probably ought to do that because there's one there that's got all the details we're going to go through, because this is way more detailed than you can remember, okay? And I'm not expecting you to remember it, so, because I can't remember it either. So thank you for being here. This morning we're going to talk about two items. We're going to deal with the legislature. They start meeting on January 17th in Salem. And if it's anything like the 2021 legislature, there were between 3,000 and 4,000 bills that were introduced at some level at the legislature that has to start out in a special area, okay? I mean, until a bill gets a number, we don't know anything about it. But if you wanted to have a bill before the legislature in Oregon this year, it needed to be to the Legislative Council back in September, okay? You don't want to expect to show up there in January with a bill that you want to start through the process. It's probably not going to make it, okay? So we're going to talk about this whole process. So here are the pieces we want to look at today. We're going to look at working with state senators and representatives. There are 90 of them, okay? There are 30 senators, 60 House representatives, okay? We're going to talk about the legislation itself, that is called the Oregon Legislative Information System. And we're going to talk about lobbyists. They get a bad rap, but we're going to talk about how do we work with them. So this is the site you need to go to deal with this whole area of legislation. And this is not a site where you can go, all right, I got it, I'll just go there and do blah, blah, blah. In order to deal with this, you have to go to this site and spend some time clicking on stuff and going down rabbit trails here and there in order to get any kind of basic understanding of it, because it is full of links. It's got hundreds of links that go various places. So you need to have some idea what you want to do if you're going to be effective here. But the other one is I recommend just go to the site and click around on stuff to kind of get somewhat familiar with what's there. So you can select legislation by selecting a Senate or a House, okay? Or you can put in a search by a name of an individual that's in the House or Senate. So if you don't know who represents you, okay, you can click on one of those buttons up there. In this case, I clicked on House. You could also click on the Senate and get the same place. But you're going to click on that, and you've got this whole list of stuff. Who are all the representatives? Represented by district, representative Democrats, representative Republicans, and then find out who is your representative if you don't know. So here's the bad news. You're going to click on that and you're going to get a map, okay? And you can zoom in on the map, or you can put in your address right up here, okay? Now the bad news is this is the map that exists today. January 3 be a different map, all right? That's because the people who ran for office for the districts they're going to be representing come January 3, okay? And Secretary of State's office, I panicked yesterday going, I wonder if they've updated the map, and I went and looked, no, as of yesterday, they hadn't updated the map. So if you zoom in on the map, in this case, I zoomed into my area, and you just click on the map, you'll get a little star like you've got here, and then you get a bunch of information. And this is the 2022 map, okay? We're looking at Senate District 8, so the 2023 one will be slightly different. So I've got Sarah's information here. So you click on that, and you'll get this box that pops up. There's the Senate, there's the House, okay? And then you got this one over there that gives you a combination. So if you want to know the senator for your district, just click on the button. The House member, click on the button, okay? Now, you click on the email, or you can click on their website. So if you're saying, I want to talk to this person, you click on the email button, and I'll say this once, and I'll probably say it another half a dozen times. Do not use the email for anything other than something dealing with the legislation. You can't do anything about they're running for office or any personal communication here, they cannot respond to you. If they do, they will say, please use this other email. Because if they carry on a conversation here with you that doesn't have to do with something that's going on with the legislation, then they get fined for that, okay? So if you want to know the House member, just click on the House member button, okay? So this is the map for 2023. It looks distinctly different than the 2022 one, but we have the same people, okay? Sarah's still the Senate District 8 person, okay? So if we clicked on the House, now each Senate district, if you remember, is divided into 2 House districts. So 8 is divided into House districts 15 and 16, right? And it won't look like this. This is 2022, but here we've got the House, and in this case, it's Shelley Boshart Davis. I'll get that right pretty soon, okay? So she's in House District 15, and if you click on the email, then you'll get this little deal that pops up here, okay, that lets you email them. It's not your email, okay? That doesn't go to your email box. It goes to their email, okay? So if you want to communicate, that's an easy way to do it. If you want to go to their website, you just click on the website button and you get something that looks like this, that's got all kinds of information on it, okay? You want to find out what committees she's working on, what else she's doing, okay? Then that's where you can go get that information. So this is the way House District 15 will look starting January 3, okay? So I've clicked on her name, and it brings up this little box, and then I can click down here to say, all right, she's involved in some committees, and the committees are listed off there, and I clicked on one of them, okay? And without my glasses, I don't even know what it says, but even with the new projectors, I can't read that, and without my glasses, I can't read it at all. It's a joint intern committee on the Interstate 5 bridge. Now, I should have remembered that, but I didn't, okay? You'll notice this is the committee, and these are the members of the committee down here. You see the chair, co-chair, and all the members. So these are the individuals that are on that committee. These are, in this case, House members, okay? Because there are 3 groups of committees. There are House, Senate, and Joint, okay? So, and a lot of this will change, okay? They're changing it later this month, okay? I think it's the 2nd or 3rd week of this month that they start changing all this around. So this is also part of what's called the Oregon Legislative Information System. And down here at the bottom, you've got this group down here. This is an LPRO analyst. Well, that's a Legislative Policy and Research Office. Okay? These are staff members. These are not elected people. These are the staff that are working on the legislation. So legislation is written by a group of lawyers, okay? And they're part of this group, okay? And these are usually people that you don't want to contact unless you have contacted your House or Senate representative and they've asked you to do that, or you say, I would like to be able to I want to talk to this person here. Well, I'm going to go up here to Shelley and click on her email and say, I'd like to contact this person dealing with this piece of legislation or with this committee. Will you approve that? Okay? Now, it's not an approval or disapproval, but this is your House representative, and you want to be able to work with this person, and so you don't want to be going or doing an end run around them. You want to keep them in the loop of what you're doing, because they don't want to hear from this hired individual that you have contacted them and asked them a question that she could have answered. Okay? It just puts you on bad footing with the representative. So you click on an individual's name down there that's part of the committee, and now you'll bring up information about the person, and now you can send information to them. If you're going to write to a House or Senate member, here's some general guidelines. Give them a short bio. Make sure you put your address in, and my advice is go to the map and make sure you're actually in their district, okay? Because if you're not in their district, they're just going to send you back saying they can't communicate with you because you're not in their district, okay? So then, what is the issue that you're interested in? So this is short, okay? We're not talking about paragraphs here. We're talking about, one paragraph, very few sentences, okay? So if you're going to communicate with House or Senate members, here's some communication stuff to think about. All forms of communication are viable. This is a list that I believe in order of how effective they will be, okay? And the list will change depending upon the time of the year, the cycle of what's happening in the House and Senate. But initially, email is effective, but it's the least effective. Letters, especially handwritten letters, are typed and personal signature come next. Postcards, easy to read postcard. Because they have people reviewing these. Phone calls, you may or may not be able to talk to the person, but you'll get somebody to answer the phone and you can leave a message. In person is always best. If it's a critical issue, if it's something you really want to have an impact on, nothing beats showing up at the door. Now, I would call ahead of time to make sure that this person is going to be available when you get there, okay? But you'll make more headway on things that are really important by being there in person. If you want to deal with specific legislation, make sure that your communication with them is short. You deal with one issue at a time. You need to be personal. It is about you, your family, your business. How is it, what is the issue here? And then you need to be emotional. I don't mean flailing of arms, but emotional in how does this legislation impact you personally, your family, your business, or something that you're really interested in, okay? Keep it short, focused, personal. The advice that I've received from some House members is please prepare in advance, even if you're going to write, especially if you're going to phone. Focus on one topic only. Cite the bill number or title or the issue. Be brief, be informed, and to the point. Be clear about what you want them to do. What are your expectations? But above all, be polite and respectful. Okay? It doesn't do you any good to be mad on the phone to a House or Senate representative. It's not helpful. You can be mad after you hang up the phone, okay? So here's a couple of examples that I've received from people who work there. And it doesn't make a difference if you're doing this in writing or you're on the phone. So, hello, my name is Mary Smith. I am from what county? I am calling this representative, whatever their name is, today regarding House bill or Senate bill or joint bill, whatever it is. Make sure you get that up front, who you are, where you're from, and what is the issue you're after. Or another one is I am calling representative or senator by name, okay? As a voter in Lynn County or whatever county you're in, I oppose the passing of this bill. Neither Oregon nor the federal government has the funds for this project. I'm asking representative, senator to be physically responsible and to vote no on the bill. Now, it could be that you're in favor of the bill, and so you just flip that around, okay? But it doesn't need to be any longer than that, right? The longer it is, the less likely they are to read it, okay? I've had some folks up there tell me if it's more than a paragraph, I just save it for later. We'll let one of the interns or somebody look at it, okay? So you got to get what is the issue, get it right up front, okay? And be quick, get in and out, okay? And then if you've communicated by one means or another with a House or Senate member, then I would encourage you to do follow-up, okay? You ask them to do something. Then one of the deals is tracking. You wanted them to vote for or against something. How did they do? Okay? And whatever the issue is, you see, if they didn't vote or did vote the way you wanted them, then follow up saying, I noticed that you voted blah, 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 okay? While I don't agree with that, thank you for standing up, or thank you for, I had suggested we come against this particular issue, and you did that, and I want to thank you for that, okay? Another way you can always thank House or Senate members is to find out where their personal website is and click on the donate button, okay? You want to do that after. You don't want to try to, you're not trying to bribe them, okay? You're saying, I appreciate the work they're doing, so let's put some money in their coffers for them, okay? All right, so now let's go to legislation. And I mentioned it earlier. In 2021, there was between 3,000 and 4,000 bills. Many of those will not make it to the floor. It's very difficult for you to address a bill until it has a number. It's got to get a number assigned, okay? And then you can deal with it. So the thing that we're after here is this Oregon Legislative Information System, and you can go by committee here, or you can go down here and click on the OLIS button, okay? Either one of these are going to get you into the queue, so to speak, okay? So there are 3 groups of committees I mentioned before. There is Senate, House, and Joint, okay? And if you get over here, here's the committee assignments. You'll see them listed off here, okay? You can come at this by House or committee member, okay? You can deal with it by number, or you can just generally go in, I wonder what it is they're working on today. So in this case, we're going to focus on a committee, a Senate committee, okay? And if you click on the little button there that says Senate Committee, you get this long list that runs way off down the page here of the various Senate committees. Now, it's helpful to kind of have some idea of what committee you're looking for, and this is the reason for spending time ahead of time to go in and click around on this. I mean, you've got these committees here. One says campaign finance, another one conduct, another one education, environment, and natural resources. Those might not be what you think they are, okay? It's the name of a committee. They probably are dealing with some stuff in that area, but maybe there's other issues. So it's important to click and kind of get some idea, what does that committee really do? Now, I clicked on the Education Committee here, and then you get this big piece that pops up, and then here's the Education Committee. Here are the people, here are the members of that committee, and here are the hired staff down here. Now remember I said there's 2 ways in here. One of them was to start up there with the committees. The other one is to go in here and click on the OLIS button, okay? And you click on the OLIS button, now you get a slightly different screen. And this one can get confusing, okay? Because this will always default to the current, the recent session that's going on. And I did this back in the spring, okay? So, because we don't have new sessions yet, so it's like there's no need to update it yet, I'll just wait. So this will default if you're wanting to know something about a session that is over. For instance, the new session starts January 17th. If you say, I wanted to find out about something that I saw in the paper that they said passed during the intern session last year, then you'll have to click on the button up here and select the session. And that's right over here. It says sessions, okay? You do that, then you get a long list of the sessions, okay? And then you got to click on whichever one you want, and I'm going to click on the one that says 2021 regular session. Now, 2021 regular session comes up, and I'm going to click on an item down here, okay? And we'll come back to, we'll figure out what that is here in a minute, okay? This is a number, and I picked on it because it pops up early, okay? And so this is called SCR 2A. It's like, I don't know what that is, but I'm kind of interested in that. But we've got all of the people who are involved, okay? So now I'm going to click on a piece down here that says House Committee on Rules. Well, wait a minute. I'm looking at this SCR thing, but I noticed there are other committees that are involved. So one of them is the House Committee on Rules. So I'm going to click on that, and that gets me another page, okay? So this is the House Committee on Rules, and now I've got a list of all the people involved there and the staff, okay? Then I'm going to back up and go, well, what was this thing? Well, if you click on the button, then you get another screen, and this turns out to be a Senate Concurrent Resolution 2. And I didn't bother to read that. I mean, my deal is to say, here are the paths that you can go, okay? And there's just, it's almost overwhelming with the amount of material that's in here, okay? So now I want to go to finding or tracing a bill, okay? We've looked at stuff generally, kind of poked around in here. Now let's go over to selecting a bill. So you click on the little button up here to get what session you want. Okay, and when I clicked on that button, then I get this long list that pops up here, and I'm going to click on this session, and I think, again, I picked the 2021 regular session, okay? And that takes me to the regular session. And then I get to select a bill. Now, I have three options to select a bill. I can select it by number, I can find it by name, or I can find it by sponsor. So you're looking at the newspaper or a Facebook feed or a Twitter feed or something, and you see a Senate bill information or a House bill. Well, now you go, all right, I've got the number. I can go in here and type in the number right here, okay? Or I also have them all listed off here. I mean, if it was a Senate bill, all I have to do is click on one of these buttons and it will expand. I mean, there's 50 of them in there, okay? They're in groups of 50. Or it's like, well, let's see, I can't remember the number, but I kind of remember the name. So you can type the name in and you'll get a list of bills that include those words. Or you say, oh, I can't remember any of that, but I remember who the House member was that they talked about in the news article, or the Senate person. I can just put their name right in here, okay? In this case, I'm going, all right, I know what it was, and it was Lee Byer, okay? So I've found him, and then now I have a list here of the Senate bills that he's involved with, okay? So these are bills that either he is the chair of or he's on the committee. So I click on one of those. In this case, it's Senate Bill 11. Now, here's a good news, bad news piece. You're going to get this list that pops up here, and you've got this long list of bills that he's involved in. But if you just hold your mouse over each one of those, you'll get this little short description right here that tells you what that bill is, so you don't have to open it up and dive in. Okay? If you say, I think I know what the bill is, but it's a Senate bill, oh, it's not 11, which one was it? Well, you can just kind of scroll down there with your mouse, and these windows will each pop up until you find the one you want. All right? And I clicked on it, and there it is. And here's the good news, bad news. Down here in the lower left of all these bills is this little deal where you can track them. It's called e-subscribe. So if you want to follow a bill, once it gets a number, it gets assigned to a committee, you got a number on it, you want to say, well, I'm really interested in tracking what's going on here. Well, click on this little button right here, okay? Now be careful how many times you do that. Because for every bill that you click on that you want to follow it, it's going to ask for your email, okay, and you give it your email, and then here's what's going to happen. You'll get a notice every time there's any action. They change the text, they set a meeting, they change the meeting time, they cancel a meeting, they moved a meeting. It's the first reading, second reading, third reading. They went back and changed something. Somebody else was assigned to the committee. A person left the committee. I'm going to fall over. Ah. All right, so be careful how many of those bills you address, okay? All right. All right, let's brings us to the lobbying and the lobbyists, okay? And here comes my water.
Such important things to say. I don't want to miss any of it. So. There you go.
Thank you. So what is lobbying? This is a body of people seeking to influence legislation. So a lobbyist is any person who is hired by a client to influence legislation. We often think about them in a bad light, but they can have a very positive impact on things. So in Oregon, all lobbyists, I mean, you can be a lobbyist that's not hired, okay? There are people who go to the legislature and they want to push for or against a bill, but they're not a hired lobbyist. They're a private individual, or they're somebody representing a nonprofit group. They're not necessarily registered, okay? They're not on the staff of the group. They're just interested, okay? So that's not the group. Now I'm talking about people who are hired to influence legislation. In Oregon, they are required by law to register with the Oregon Government Ethics Commission, okay? It's not an option, it's a requirement. Now, most all of them are also listed in a group called the Capital Club. Now, the Capital Club is open to anyone, even if you're not a member. If you want to be a member, you can join, but you need to get out your checkbook, okay? Because in order to get access to everything, you're going to need to make a payment. But you can go to their directory, because it's available online, and you can say, listen, I'd like to find a lobbyist, or I want to find information about a lobbyist. So you've got these three options. You can get them by name, by the client, or by industry. So I picked on a couple people here. I picked on my chiropractor by name, okay, because I knew that he was a lobbyist, and he's a lobbyist for one organization. It's a chiropractic organization, and he's been doing it a long time. He's part of the Oregon Chiropractic Association, okay? He's got this other group that is him, okay? It's a Sable Government Affairs, Inc., okay? That's his lobbying organization, okay? But he only has one client, okay? Now, we can also go by client, and I picked on Lynn County, and we get a couple people pop up here for Lynn County. Jennifer is one of them, and Alicia is another one. And then I go over to Jennifer, and here's the aha when I look at Jennifer. Jennifer is the lobbyist for a wide number of people. So if I'm interested in stuff dealing with Lynn County, and I'm wanting to deal with a lobbyist, she may or may not be my first choice. I mean, if there's another lobbyist that's got fewer clients, I'm probably going to go there first, because you can see that she's going to be busy. Now, it's not one person, so she's part of a company that has a staff, okay, but it's under her name, okay, and it's under Public Affairs Council, but you can see it's just a huge number of people that are writing checks here. So I picked on Mark here because I was interested in a person who's dealing with fewer organizations. And this person is primarily dealing with special districts. And you can see that there are several of them that are represented, but if you look at them, they all have some similarities. These are all public, with elected officials, Special Districts Association of Oregon, the Oregon Public Parks Association. So it's various associations dealing with public entities, okay? And he is their hired lobbyist, okay? And as are these other two, okay? Jennifer is part of that, okay? So it's a narrower group, and I got here by looking at industry. So in the industry group, I found Special District Association, and I chose it because it's an organization I know about. I was around when it got started, okay? Now, another way to do this is by industry groups, okay? So here you click on the industry, and I clicked on the tab that said Advertising, Media, and Publishing. And you can see when you do that, you've got this long list, okay, of organizations. So you can click on one of those, and you can find out who the lobbyist is for that particular group, okay? Now you see why you got the handout here. I mean, this is just more than we can deal with. So if you want to make contact with a lobbyist, it's really important to understand you're not their client, okay? So you need to make your message to them like we were talking about with the House and Senate members. You need to make it clear and short. Keep it to one paragraph or less. And be clear about why you're contacting them, okay? Because they're not your client, okay? They may or may not respond back to you. But if there are a group of you that are interested in what's happening with a bill that impacts your fire district, for instance, okay? Because then you can have various people contact the lobbyists that deals with fire districts, okay? And pretty soon, there's been 5 or 6 people contacting me. They've left contact information. They're going to talk to whatever House or Senate member is dealing with legislation that has to do with fire districts, okay? And they're going to share what information they have, okay? And they may or may not get back to you. So this is not your first avenue of impact, but it's worth doing. I worked on trying to get a bill a few years ago where we made the mistake of showing up at Shelley's front door in the middle of session with a bill idea, okay? And we got an education with that, okay? And part of the education is we got to meet with a couple of lobbyists that she called in that had to deal with the area that we were interested in, okay? And so we were able to make contact with them to come back and talk to them at a later point. So it didn't hurt us. I mean, we didn't get our bill. It never got a number. It never went anywhere at the time. But since then, there's been other action on it. But part of it was a learning experience. How does this process work? Okay. So in summary, then there are 3 components. You've got elected officials, you've got the OLIS system, and you've got the lobbyists. And a group that I failed to put in the list, and it just dawned on me yesterday, was this group, the Oregon Citizens Lobby. They have a thing called the War Room, and I think Jeff will fire that up probably early in January, and he runs a little office in the Capitol, and you can go there and you can get training on how to deal with specific legislation. If you want to see changes to a bill, saying, I'd like to see this paragraph changed to blah, blah, blah. The War Room is a place that you can go that they can help you figure out how to do that. First of all, do I have a chance of making any impact? Okay, that's the first question, okay? Or am I only going to be here in order to gain some background? And at the War Room, they'll give you some ideas about what's the probability here of you being able to make any changes to a bill, okay? So questions, time for a couple of questions before we deal with judges. You want to grab the mic for me here? I'm going to drive them crazy up there because I'm walking around in there.
I can handle it.
So, the upcoming legislative session, is it a short session, a long session?
This is a regular session.
It is, okay.
Okay, so this is be a long session. I looked at the calendar yesterday. It looks like it starts on the 17th. I know that new House and Senate people will be going to say, some of them may be up there now, but they've got to go and get offices set up, and I know that they'll be doing that this month. Okay.
Second question is the bill. So I heard you say that you presented your own bill, but in generally, who writes the bills? Is it people hired by the representatives, or the lobbyists?
The people who write them are the legislative council, okay? These are hired lawyers, okay, for the most part, okay? But they're people with expertise dealing with legislation. And part of what we found out when we went to try to deal with the bill was, well, you're a little late. I mean, we were there in February and said you should have been here in August or September, okay, with the information. Because you can imagine if there's 3,000 or 4,000 bills down there and you show up, halfway through the session and go, I got an idea. They're going, yeah, well, good luck. Okay, we all have an idea, okay, all right? Anybody else before we deal with the judges here? All right, this is the last piece of this that I want to deal with, and then next week we're going to do a summary and kind of a review and summary and go, all right, so now what, okay? But I want to talk about judges, because this is an area that makes my head spin, okay? So there are 3 statewide court systems. These are all elected judges with a set term, okay? And we want to talk about the impact of the governor appointment process for judges. So here are the 3 systems: circuit courts, Court of Appeals, and Supreme Court. In every case, these are 6-year terms with mandatory retirement at 75. It is common practice to retire before the end of the term, and the replacement is appointed by the governor, and then they get to run in the next election as an incumbent, okay? So this is judges by governor when we get done. So let's look first at the circuit courts. This is the level that we would commonly go to first. So there are 36 counties in Oregon. They're divided into 27 judicial districts. There are 177 elected judges, all of them for 6-year terms. And here's the piece that makes it difficult to try to track when they're going to be elected is some of them get elected in May and some of them in the November election, okay? So trying to figure out which is coming up when requires a little bit of work, okay? So let's deal with Marion County first. Marion County is the largest of the 3 counties we're dealing with. There are 15 elected judges. 7 of them will be on the 2024 election cycle, okay? Part of them in May and part of them in November, and I started to do that and went, it doesn't really make all that much difference. But these are the positions that are coming up, okay? You've got you got Bennett and Wren. You've got Armstrong, Lyon, and Partridge, I believe is his name, okay? And Adder and Geyer. Now, the question that people usually ask is, how do I find out about the judges? Well, not easily, okay? There isn't any process here. These are quote-unquote nonpartisan positions. Rarely do you have anybody run against an incumbent judge. It happened once in this term. A couple of years ago, it happened twice in Lynn County, okay? So it does happen, and if it happens, it's usually at the circuit court level, and it usually is a result of a judge doing something that people didn't like, or in one of the cases in Lynn County, is a result of a judge retiring. The governor appointed someone who most of us thought was not qualified for the position, okay? And so a local lawyer ran against that person, okay, and won, okay? Now, it is very difficult for two pieces, to find out much about a judge and to run against them. Those are two hurdles to have to go through. The best you can do is take the time. I mean, you can start with just Google their name, okay? And you'll get some information, especially if they've ruled in a controversial issue, okay? You'll find it in a newspaper. Other than that, you have to go look at the court records, and if you can, you go to the Marion County's website and find the judges, or you go to the state website and find the judges, then you can often dig down and find out how they've ruled on various items. You can't use, it's hard to find out how they've ruled on everything, but you got to spend some time there. I suggest to people that if you're really interested in the judges that are coming up, and there are 2 or 3 of them, you get a group of people together and you say, listen, I'll take this one, you take that one, and you take the third one, and we'll spend some time, because these folks are coming up in 2024. So now is the time to be starting to look about who they are and how they rule. Okay? Then in 2026, I know it's a long ways off, but it'll come up pretty fast. There are 3 judges that will come up on the ballot. And then in 2028, okay, there are 5 more, right? And this young lady, Amy, was just elected. She ran against a sitting judge and won, okay? Now, that's unusual. It's not in my county, so I didn't spend a lot of time finding out about her. But typically, when we get our ballot, we've got the list of judges there, but there's just one, okay? And what do you do? Well, if you haven't done any work on them, you really don't know what to do. And I usually say to people, listen, if it's somebody you doesn't think ought to be elected, okay, then don't mark anything on the ballot. And it'll come in as an undervote, okay? And when you're looking at doing analysis after an election and you've got a person who ran for a position and nobody was running against them, and you've got a huge undervote, it tells you that it's probably a vulnerable position, okay? Or nobody knew anything about them. But typically it means that they're vulnerable. Right. In my county, there are 5 judges, okay? We have 2 of them on the ballot in 24, and, no, 3 of them, excuse me, in 24. And these 2, this one right here, Winhausen, okay, and Rachel, these 2 ran against sitting judges and won, okay? So it can happen. Doesn't happen very often, but it can happen. Right. Benton County, you have 3 judges. Nobody on the ballot until 26. You got 2 of them on 26 and 1 of them in 28. So there's time to be looking about them. I mean, if this is an area of interest for you, okay, then now's the time to start looking about these positions that are on the ballot. Right. Which brings us to the appeals court. This was created in 1969. It's located in Salem. It's the first level of appeal following a trial with everything except death. Okay, death sentences don't go here. There are 13 elected judges, all of them, like the others, 6-year term, or they can have to retire at age 75. So I added a piece here. My piece was, who appointed these judges? Which ones were elected? Well, it turns out of the judges that are in the appeals court, only 1 has got there by election. You can see for this group here in 2024, 3 of them were appointed by Brown. Then we go to 2026, we've got Brown for 2 and Kitzhofer for 2, okay? And then we get to 2028, we've got Kitzhofer and 4 for Brown. Now here's what goes on. I'm not in favor of Democrats or Republicans, either one, having this kind of power. So you can imagine if you're the governor and you have a certain political view, worldview, okay, and you get a chance to pick judges, you're going to pick judges that have a similar worldview, okay? And so judges for the appeals court typically come out of the circuit court system so that they have some idea of how they ruled, okay? And so there's also parties that people go to, and there are, you make friends and you find out about people. And so we end up with people appointed positions that didn't get there by election, and then they stand for election, okay? But they run as an incumbent. So I don't know what the solution to that is. I mean, I like this comes out of our Constitution, okay? You got a judge that something happens, they retire early. What are you going to do about that? Well, we've made that so the governor gets to appoint them. If I was king for the day, and nobody wants that, okay? I would do a process where they have to be confirmed by the Senate, okay? Now, for the last few years in Oregon, it really wouldn't make all that much difference, would it? I mean, if you got a Democrat judge or Democrat governor, and they appoint a judge that is in the same political view they are, and it goes to the Senate, which had until this year had a supermajority, they're going to support their governor, okay? You had the same thing if it was a Republican on both sides of that, okay? So it's an unfortunate issue, okay? So the last one is the Supreme Court. 7 judges in Oregon, okay? This is the one that bothers me most. I'm going to back up here, okay? Notice this group. We've got 2 appointed by Kulinkowski, all the rest of them by Brown, okay? When the Lynn County, along with other counties, won a judgment against the state of Oregon for a failure to take care of forest products, okay? It was a larger judgment, okay? They won that judgment. Unfortunately, it was appealed. It went to the appellate court and then to the Supreme Court. And I remember a county commissioner saying to me, if it goes to the Supreme Court, we're going to lose, okay? Regardless of its merits. Why are we going to lose? Because this was a lawsuit against the state, and we look and you can see that all of these were appointed by Democrat governors, okay? And this issue was pretty much a political issue that the 2 sides were opposed to, okay? So these are the judges that will be on the ballot in 2024, these 3. Then theoretically, these will be on the ballot in 2026 and 2028, except these 2 right here, okay, that were appointed by Kitzhofer have already announced that they intend to retire before the end of the year, okay? Now, they could back out from that, okay, because the new governor is also a Democrat governor, okay? But their term was not up until 2026. But the fear was that Christine would get elected, okay? And then people are going to retire, okay? And then she could appoint somebody. So it's like, this is bizarre, okay? So here in summary, 3 systems: Circuit Court, Appeals, Supreme Court, 43 elected judges that represent Lynn, Benton, and Marion counties. They all for 6-year term or until age of 75, okay? And the elections are in May and November. And it's very difficult for us to find out information about them, okay? So we've got about 2 minutes here if anybody has questions. Somebody want to get one over here?
Yes, Skeet, I was just wondering, so these 2 judges that are retiring, and they be coming up for election on 2026. If a person gets appointed by the new governor, does the clock start over for them?
No, they will have to be on the 2026 ballot, okay? But they'll be running it as incumbents. And hardly anybody that's a lawyer wants to run against a sitting judge, and part of it is what happens if you run against them and you lose and then you end up in their court? John?
Well, I used to have friends years ago, I haven't seen them for a long time, and their families were numerous generations of the bar in Oregon, some of them all the way back to when Oregon was founded. and they all told me the same thing. It's bad form within the Bar Association to run against a sitting judge. It won't be just the judge that doesn't like you, it'll be the entire Bar Association. And about the only time, other than possibly ego, that a candidate will run against a sitting judge is because the Bar Association has decided that judge has to leave. And the Bar Association discourages anybody that they haven't already ordained to run against a sitting judge.
Right.
And it's been that way since forever.
So what's the solution, okay? I mean, for me, there's only one solution that I see here, and that is focused prayer on this issue, okay? Corporate focused prayer on this issue. I mean, unless God intervenes, this will not change, okay? And so we need some guidance, but we need God's intervention, okay? Right, so Heavenly Father, thank you that we live in a free country. Thank you for the foundation that you poured into the minds of the founders of this country. Lord, I'd ask that you guide and direct each of us as we go from here, that we would listen to your direction and your guidance and what we ought to be doing when it comes to the political foundation of America. In Jesus' holy name.